Hello, 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 and welcome to today's episode of Her Version. This podcast is dedicated to sharing stories of struggle and triumph, a platform that allows individuals to tell their truth in order to inspire and uplift others. For those of you that are new to this podcast and like content like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button, follow, like, and share. I am your host, Sabrina Victoria. Let's jump right in. Thank you for joining us today for this episode of Her Version. We have had over 400 women grace the Her Version stage, and we love every single one of them. This platform is built on storytelling and the understanding that many times our greatest learning experiences come from listening to other people's stories. So today I am speaking with an amazing woman named Dr. Angela Smith. Angela was a holistic chiropractor once upon a time, turned coach, teacher, and mentor. I love that. She believes that the relationship between body, mind, soul, and spirit is why we are here in this life. And the purpose of body, the physical, connected to life part of us, is simply to deliver that experience like a compass, guiding the way through many clues and cues, yes, that we feel in any given moment on any given day through body. It's so much more than our health, weight, size, shape, or abilities. Yes, there's inherent wisdom, a personalized blueprint that exists within ourselves, a template for our life. This is often misunderstood or minimized, causing disconnect within us, lending to stress and struggle. Through her work, she aims to show others how to once again tune in and reconnect to that knowing wisdom, letting body take the lead, even when it seems like it's the problem. Ooh, especially when it seems like it's the problem. I love that. Welcome, Angela. I am so excited to have you here hanging out with us, to hear a little bit about your journey and to dive into all of the awesomeness that you are doing in your world right now.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much for the invite.
Yes, 100%. First of all, I would love to. So, this podcast, as you know, is all based around storytelling. The ladies that listen here every single week love to kind of just dive in and hear stuff, whether it's your stories or other people's stories of um darkness to light,
Yeah.
of struggle to triumph, of victim to victor, and the pivots and the challenges. So many times when we're just walking around this earth, we look at people and we're like, oh, she's got it all together. Look at Dr. Angela Smith. She must have all her stuff together. And it's so important sometimes for us as females to recognize, yes, and there was some stuff.
Yeah.
There was some stuff that we had to go through in order to get to where we are. And just because we are where we are doesn't mean that there's not continuous struggle. It's so easy to get wrapped up in like, woe is me and everybody else looks awesome. And that's just not the case. So I love to bring women on like you who just understand that concept and are open to sharing some stuff, in order to give inspiration and motivation to other women who are listening right now who maybe are not in the best place right now.
Got it.
So I would love to open the floor to you and just kind of hear, where were some pivots, where were some challenges in your life, that you can share with us?
Ooh. Oh my gosh, there's been quite a few. But as I was thinking about this conversation and this story aspect, and one of the questions I've heard you ask other people, and I was just sort of being with it, was what was a major turning point in your life that kind of shifted everything? And for me, that was 2012. And I was working at a a rehab center for spinal cord injury and people who had experienced spinal cord injury, brain injury, and progressive neurological disorders, that sort of thing. And it was very rewarding, and at the same time, it was really heavy. And I felt like there was something brewing for me, something different, sort of go out on my own. But I need to kind of preface that, because in that time frame, I had just turned 40, and this was like, yeah, I had just turned 40, and with myself, I'd had my own sort of struggle with my physical, with my body, and it always seemed like I was gaining and losing the same 10 pounds, and I could never get over just that feeling of not good enough, or that insecureness, or just how we sort of measure our physical. And I was sitting in an Airbnb in Hawaii, and I was just sitting on the balcony, and I was not thinking about anything, and I was just enjoying my cup of coffee. And I just had this thought blow through my head that said, your body is here for you, for the sole purpose of your life. And I wasn't thinking about anything related to that. So it really struck me. I was just in that really open, sort of non-thinking place, and that sort of entered my consciousness. And it definitely didn't shift everything for me. That took a little bit longer. And then we want to fast forward to, that was January of 2012. Fast forward to Thanksgiving. I'm at my job at the rehab center, and it was a nonprofit, and we were struggling financially. And I got an email from our executive director that said, your salary is going to be cut, and immediately, and, we're sorry, and blah, blah, blah. And I just made the choice right then that, okay, this is my sign to go off and do my own thing. And then not a week later, I got a text from my closest, longest BFF friend. We've been friends since we were 7. And she sent me a text, and it read, sorry to do this over text, but my sister's in the hospital and she's not expected to leave. And I replied with, okay, I'll see you tomorrow. And I booked a one-way ticket home. And I knew she had been sick. So I went home, said my goodbyes, helped the family, moved kids, all of that thing. And when I returned to California, I returned back home to my life and this new endeavor that I was stepping into, which was really to help with my own experience, my own personal experience, and what had happened with my friend passing away was really how we feel about ourselves because of our physical. And there's so much of a disconnect there. And she passed away as a result of trying to change herself so significantly that there was just this cumulative process that happened, and it contributed to her death. And there was just this, man, like there has to be something different than this. And in my own experience, the experiences that I was having with clients and friends, just the conversations of this constant not good enough in our bodies, not good enough in how I look or how I feel, and our abilities, and all the value that we place on ourselves based on our physicality. And there's so much of that in our society. But that was sort of the initial of how I went out on my own and how I started doing what I'm doing now. And it's just kind of progressively gotten deeper and wider, because it's never about just our body. It's never about our looks. It's never just about our health. All those things there's more to it than that. It's the relationship that we have with ourselves. It's how we know ourselves. It's how we think about ourselves. It's how we talk about ourselves. And because all of that is connected by our nervous system, which is ultimately what controls our health and our happiness. It ultimately connects all of our insides with our outside life. It ultimately connects how we interact with other people. It's taken record of every single thing that has ever happened in our life, and it's stored it here. And for people to understand how we function, and that's where the work has gone. I just took us on a long journey there.
I love it. So I have a couple questions.
Yeah.
First of all, not good enough in our bodies. Are you finding this prevalent in women predominantly, or is this a human thing?
Well, initially, it was women. That was my experience. That was the experience of, the majority of the people I was surrounding myself with. But it absolutely is a human experience. And yeah, no, it absolutely is a human experience. And that's how this work has deepened and widened, because as much as I was starting off with weight loss and health and all of that jam, it was never actually about that. It was always what's underneath. When that gets fixed, then what? It's the underneath feeling. It's the underneath relationship that we have with ourselves and our self-concept and our identity and how we know ourselves. And all of that is in the mix of our physicality. Gives us cues and clues when we're not in alignment with ourselves, when we're kind of beating ourselves up from the inside out.
I love this. So, there's so much talk for good reason in the world as far as pollution, food, exercise, and all of these things that are coming at us as humans. And then there is, which is what you're talking about, mind, self-talk, negativity. Where does that sit in the lineage of eating ho-hos for lunch every day?
Awesome. I used to have ho-hos every day in my lunchbox. Such a great question, and I'm so glad that you asked it. So when I talk about the nervous system, let's talk about stress for a second, because there's different types of stress. And we often think of stress mostly just as, okay, like I'm stressed about work, I'm stressed about things that are going on in my life, I'm stressed about that, whatever. But stress can be all those things that you just mentioned. Stress can be toxic crap in our environment, not the best food, not getting enough sleep. Like all of that can be stress. But here's the thing, and stress can also be how we think about ourselves, how we talk to ourselves, how we know ourselves. And here's the awesome part of it, is that the way the body responds to any kind of stress is the same way. So anybody who has symptoms of any kind, anybody who's got a weight issue of any kind, anybody that has some sort of symptomology or disease process going on of any kind, their body is in a physiological state of stress. And when that happens, there's certain things that the body does to conserve energy. So if you think about being in a state of stress is like you're running from a tiger, and like you're running away from something. So we know like fight, flight, or freeze. Those are the main components of when a person is in a stress response. But we as a society, as a world, exist so much in a state of stress, and there's different levels of it, and it's cumulative, it's progressive, and it's not just the things that are happening in the immediacy. It's everything we've ever experienced in our life contributes to this. So it kind of doesn't matter if it's a ho-ho situation or if it's a toxic relationship situation. The body's going to respond the same way. The same way in terms of it's going to shut certain things down in order to maintain the fight or the flight or the freeze.
When you say shut certain things down, what does that mean?
So, well, you could liken that to, it turns down metabolism. It turns down the energy output that our body is giving. So every single thing that's taking place in our bodies, just as we're sitting here having this awesome conversation, every single thing that's functioning is contributing to our metabolism. It's not just what we eat and then what we expend out. It is that, but it's more. It's so much of our metabolism is every single thing that our heart's beating, our lungs are breathing, our nerves are firing, there's our cells are splitting and dividing, there's cleaning house, there's digest, there's all of these things. But when we're in a state of physiological stress, whatever the reason is, the body turns down certain functions. So because when we're running away from a tiger, that's not the time for our digestion to be going. So it's going to turn down digestion. When we're running from a tiger, that's not the time to clean house or detoxify. So the body turns down the natural detoxification processes. Things get backed up. Constipation happens. We get puffy. Like there's all these things. If we're in a state of stress physiology, it's really hard to sleep at night because cortisol is really high. So melatonin can't come up. They're correlated together. Because when we're running from a tiger, that's not the time to pull over and sleep. So now, while we're not running from tigers in our life for real, we're often running from these tigers. We're running from the tigers of the shoulds and the obligations. We're running from the tigers of, if I don't perform in this way, I'm not good enough. If I don't do the X, Y, and Z, then ABC is going to happen. There's this worry and anxiousness, and then there's like looking back on the past and the mistakes that I've made, or what happened then and how that affects us now. So it's in addition to all those things you mentioned, ho-hos, toxic, blah, blah, blah. There's that, and then there's the ways in which we think and know ourselves and be that contribute to that. And that was definitely part of my personal experience in all this, is that there was just this kind of type A personality, and that was like constantly on the go and constant perfectionism and like vigilant of, okay, well, if I do this, what will these people do? Or if I say this, what will happen here? Or like people pleasing. There's all these ways that we develop and learn to manage our environment that are survival skills. And it just all adds up. So when we talk about, this is especially true, I want to say this. So if somebody, I want to bring this back to specifically to weight and ho-hos, say. Because the calories in and the calories out, if a person is in a state of chronic stress, and I'll give you a story that will help sort of exemplify this. Their body can only do so much healing or so much releasing, because the demand of the stress overrides the releasing of pounds, because a body needs to feel safe in order to heal or to lose weight, especially a female body. And there's a hormone difference there. There's a biological difference there we're responsible for carrying the babies and growing. So we have to be more, our physiology has to be more susceptible and responsive to dangers, that could potentially not populate the species, right? I mean, this is biologically wired in us to populate our species. So, but here's a perfect example of what I'm talking about. I had a client who was on the verge of diabetes, and she did not want to be, obviously. And she didn't want to go on medications either. And she wanted to try and do this naturally. And over the course of, we worked together for 3 months. And over the course of those 3 months, I don't do so much of a diet as I do, let's pay attention. Let's be really present. Let's pay attention. Let's not just, and that's part of this process, not just run on our habitual ways of doing things like stop and slow down and be present to when you eat. Am I satisfied, or am I really still hungry? Okay, so she got to see that a lot of her habits and a lot of her patterns where she would eat when she didn't want to, especially if they were at a friend's house and she was offered dessert, she felt bad if she didn't eat it. Do you know what I mean? So like those
Oh,
kinds of things.
yeah.
But the biggest kicker was I asked her one day what her morning routine was like. And she said she got up, she had her coffee, she watched the news, she checked her bank balance, she checked her emails, and then she checked her blood sugar and her blood pressure. And naturally, because of all these things, the news, money, all of that created a stress response in her. And that's what she was picking up on the readings of blood pressure and her blood sugar. So we just switched it. This was maybe a month in. For the remaining time that we work together, I'm going to ask you to do your. I have my clients do sort of this morning meditation that aligns their body with gravity, which automatically takes you out of stress. So I asked her to do that morning meditation first. I asked her to eat something before she had her coffee. And I asked her to take her blood pressure and her blood sugar prior to checking the news and to checking her bank balance and to reading her emails. And just from that change, she saw a complete difference in her blood pressure and her blood sugar.
Wow.
Now, when our 3 months were up, she carried on the program herself. And I got a text from her maybe in July, so about 4 months later, after we had completed, that she had just seen her doctor, and her doctor was blown away that she had managed to make such significant changes without medication, and she was in a gene size that was lower than she was ever in high school, and she was in her late 50s. That's how significant, and I'll give you another one. That's how significant stress physiology and our normal ways of being can affect our physicality, and the pressure of like holding on or keeping it together, or what that does to our insides, how it changes our chemistry. All of this is it's chemistry, it's hormone, it's through the nervous system, which tells the body to do anything and everything. That's coming from our brain and our nervous system through all of our spinal cord and our nerves. That's the electrical impulse of us. That's what actually meets us before we say hello to another person. We're interacting with their nervous system. That's how you can walk into a room and you can tell when two people have just been fighting. Or, I mean, we see it in road rage. We're seeing it all over the world stage right now. We are all interacting with stressed out nervous systems.
Yeah.
And,
Definitely.
yeah.
So it's so interesting that you're saying this, because, there's this, and I don't, stereotype really isn't the word that I'm looking for, but this thing that people say where women have a harder time keeping weight off or losing weight after the age of 40.
Mm-hmm.
But now that you're saying this, it's kind of like at the age of 40 as a woman is when you're doing all the things. I mean,
Yeah.
a lot of us have multiple kids, we're juggling a job, we're more than likely married or going through a divorce. All the stuff of the household, money. I mean, 30, 40, this is when it hits us. All this extra stuff that we weren't dealing with in our 20s necessarily.
Yes.
So, yeah, the whole piling on thing that you were talking about before, when you were going like this, totally makes sense. There's like a plateau that you hit of just like stuff that you're just like carrying around. And yeah, I could totally see how when your body is choosing where to exert the energy.
Exactly. It
Yeah.
is choosing where to exert the energy. It is choosing the most important functions to maintain your life.
Yeah.
It's kind of robbing Paul to pay Peter to keep you alive.
Yeah.
And fat burning, if we're in a state of stress, fat burning becomes another threat. So that is automatically turned off.
Got it.
Mhm.
Wow, that's so interesting. So, I want to, I might have a little bit more on that, but I want to talk a little bit about this sleep thing that you
Mhm.
kind of mentioned as
Yeah.
far as, because my fiance and I are very different with this. So, I can sleep no matter what.
Mhm.
It could be super high stress. We could be in the middle of a crazy argument.
Mhm.
The business could just be falling apart, like all craziness.
Mhm.
And I will sleep perfectly.
Mhm.
Like I hit my pillow, I compartmentalize, I put
Mhm.
all the stuff away in a box.
Mhm.
I know it'll be there tomorrow, and I
Mhm.
go to sleep.
Mhm.
He
Oh, good.
will not sleep. He literally cannot sleep. We argue about this all the we don't argue about it, but
Right.
we talk about it all the time as far as like it's gonna be there tomorrow. Like I just keep telling like it's gonna
Yeah.
like all the stuff will be there tomorrow. Just like meditate, stretch, like don't
Mhm.
eat too much. We tried all these things and he
Mhm.
can't sleep.
Mhm. Okay.
So why do I sleep?
Okay. So,
Feel free to make me feel really good about myself, by the way.
well, that is really awesome that you can sleep even amongst all the other things that are going on here. So, okay, well, let me just, for one, cortisol is our main stress hormone. Except we need cortisol even when we're not in stress, and it is conversely related to melatonin, which is our one of the main jobs of melatonin is to make us sleepy. So when we wake up in the morning, cortisol is high and melatonin is low. Okay. And over the course of the day, it's supposed to go cortisol comes down and melatonin comes up so we can sleep.
Okay.
Okay.
I love that.
Now, some people, this goes back to how we, because we all have a different way of responding to stress. And in those three things that I spoke of, fight, flight, or freeze, and there's another one which is fawn, but that's not really that's more of a behavior. So the fight, like when some people feel threatened, what gets mobilized in their body is a chemistry to go to battle. Okay. And they may be vocal, they may be attacking outside of them. And then for some people, their way of dealing with stress is to just get the hell away. Okay. And then for some people, there's a freeze component where we like literally are immobilized. Even though our insides are going crazy, we can't do anything. Now, you can correlate these things with depression and anxiety. Depression would be a freeze state, anxiety would be a fight state or a flight state or both. Okay. And then how this correlates to this is why you couldn't sleep through stress, maybe because and this all develops early in childhood. Like everything about who we are as adults starts in childhood, everything. So what you experienced in your childhood maybe made stress more manageable to you, whereas somebody else who might have experienced a different kind of childhood experience, different things might have taken place, or how they perceived it was differently, they might be more stressed and not able to sleep. It's not it's not exact, And you can also see that somebody, even though their cortisol is high and they're stressed out, that they can go to sleep just out of sheer exhaustion. And that sleeping is also a kind of, well, I'm going to kind of pause all this for now. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So,
So
okay.
with my fiance and
Yeah.
I was stressed my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
So abusive
Mm-hmm.
relationships, high anxiety with my
Mm-hmm.
parents,
Mm-hmm.
getting kicked
Got it.
out,
Oh.
mental abuse, emotional abuse, sexual abuse,
Mm-hmm.
high financial abuse,
Mm-hmm.
all the way through till my 30s.
Yeah.
Um, so is that me like trauma response? I had to sleep, so I just like learned how to sleep through things.
It could absolutely be that. And it could also be how you compartmentalized all of that then, simply because of your personality, your perspective, your outlook, you might be more outgoing than less timid, whatever. That could also play a part in this.
God.
And yeah,
So how
absolutely.
does one change that? How does one learn to sleep under high stress?
Well, I would, here's the thing about that. And I'm glad that you asked that question in that way, in high stress. And I've heard a lot of talk, I've seen a lot of talk out there about managing stress and coping with stress and how do you organize yourself to deal with it all. And from my approach, the way to deal with it all is to look at what's actually contributing to the stress and seeing what actually doesn't need to be there. And I don't mean the job, or I don't mean the relationship, or whatever it is. I mean how you experience yourself in it and the perspective you have of it.
Okay. So how I see myself in it.
Yeah.
So taking out what doesn't need to be there. So added feelings, added guilt, added shame,
Yes.
added
Yes.
taking that out because everything's neutral,
Yep. Yes.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And then just sitting with just the realistic, objective issue.
Yes. And yes. And you can kind of, I learned this technique, and it's sort of it's a game that I play with myself, and it's a game I have my clients play with. Just the facts, ma'am. When we look at a situation and it's something that's really troubling to us, or it has us really bothered for whatever reason, if you just look at the facts are X person said this person said that back, but anything I'm making of those facts shows me where my perspective is and what matters to me, and but what meaning I'm giving to it, because we so often take things so personally when they're actually not personal.
Yeah.
And when we can kind of start to understand how our nervous system functions, and that our snippy snappiness, or the way we handle stress, is literally just the way we handle stress, and we all do it in our own way.
Yeah.
There's a level of compassion and understanding that you can start to have for yourself when, for me, my example is my response to stress is I am a flea. I get out, or I do nothing. I possum myself. I play dead. If it's too overwhelming, I just won't do anything. Those two qualities used to make me think, oh, I'm kind of a crappy person. Like these are flaws about me. These are things that are bad about me. These are things that have brought me shame. But when I started to understand that it was a normal response to a scary situation,
Yeah.
and my particular flavor of stress response and survival was to get the hell away or to play dead, I started to see those as just the way that I was trying to keep myself safe, rather than this shameful flaw about me that needs to be fixed.
Got it.
No, it's not. And it also helped me. It also helped me give grace and compassion to the people around me that I was judging in response to how they were maybe acting at me or towards me, or you know what I mean? Like, we all have judgments, and there's nothing, I mean, we just do, we're human. But there's so many times where a situation will happen and we don't look at just the facts, ma'am, and we let our personal feelings and our stuff get in the mix of it, and then we withdraw, and now there's disconnect, and now there's misunderstanding, and now there's miscommunication, and you're wrong and I'm right, or vice versa, and now there's who's going to give in first, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or it just is God, there was just so much freedom that I was given when I started to understand how we function as human beings, that our first language is vibe. Like, when we're babies and we don't have words, we don't have language, we have no comprehension of that, we have feeling. We can feel when our mom is distressed or there's anger in the room. We can tell when there's joy in the room. Our first language is vibe, and that never goes away. It's there, but sometimes it's just so often crowded out by all this stuff that's going on in here. Yeah.
Totally makes sense. I 100% appreciate all of that. I wanted to have a follow-up question, and now I forgot what it was because I was actually paying attention to you instead of writing it down. This is what happens. This is why we write stuff down. So I want to know a little bit more about this morning meditation with gravity. I've never heard of this
Yeah.
before.
So there's this mystical, magical force that we all live in called gravity. And if we're upright, you know, there's sort of this line that runs from our ear, like if we were sideways, from our ear to our shoulder to our elbow to our hip to our knee to our ankle, and everything's supposed to be in line.
Ooh,
Okay. And through our various life things, like sitting at a computer, driving, holding a phone, holding a baby, slouching, sedentary, this is a gravital line. Our bodies get off this gravital line. So maybe our head's forward, our shoulders are rounded, or our pelvis is twisted or rotated or tipped forward or tipped backwards. And it changes our normal biomechanics. And when there's changes in our normal biomechanics, our body has to compensate, and our body will shift and pull and make this tight and this loose to accommodate. And that in and of itself puts us in a stress place. Okay. So, and then think about what we do. We'll take this body that has compensations in it, and then we take it to the gym and we push it on the bike, or we push it with weights, or we push it, right? Or we go to a yoga class, and it's this incredibly stretchy yoga class where we hold a pigeon for however long and like stretch out our tight hip flexors, not realizing that hip flexor is that way because your body's stabilizing you. And now we've just undone the body's ability to hold us. And when here's our structure, our bodies, our bones, and the tissues and the joints and all of that provides structure for the being inside, right? And when we're off the gravital line, the message from our nervous system, from our formed body, our vehicle here, through the nervous system up to our brain and then back, it sends the message not quite sturdy. So we need to shore up our shores. We need to, this is loose here and we need to tighten that. And after a while, these compensation patterns in our physical body, well, because our body and our brain, our mind are so interconnected, how we think starts to match how we feel, and how we feel starts to match our thinking.
Wow.
So if you've ever had a sprained ankle or a hurt knee or whatever, and you've kind of laid off of it for a little bit and let it heal, and then you start to, it's been 6 weeks and you start to walk on it again, there's sort of this hesitation of, yeah, I'm not sure I trust it. And that creates a sense of insecureness in our being, right? That stuff happens subtly all the time. So this morning meditation is like 25 minutes long. Each move is done for about a minute, and it just takes the major joints. So our hips, our low back, our shoulders, it goes up through the body, and it just kind of turns on the structures. So let's see, let me give you an example. There's structures in our deep core, in our center here, that provide a sense of secureness in our midsection, our core. And that often gets turned off just by sitting too long. It gets turned off in pregnancy because we have to allow for baby. Those aren't muscles that you can turn on voluntarily. Like, you can't suck it in. You can't, to get six-pack abs, you can't do that. But you can initiate it. If you were to sneeze or cough, you'll feel those turn on. There's a way to use your breath that you can turn those on. So if you can breathe in, and as you exhale, if you do a shh sound, you will feel your body, your abs turn on and hold you. And it's a memory. Your body will remember to do that. And that's part of this. It's turning on your feet, the proprioceptors in your ankles, in your feet. It's connecting your brain to the deepest core muscles, which you'll actually find in your low body part around your anus. That's a deep core muscle. So one of the moves is just to connect your mind, your brain, to that area, and to make light constrictions, like just with the level of strength of just lifting your finger, that you're just turning it on. And then we bring the sits bones, we bring that into it. And then we bring, we'll do take a yoga block and put that in between the knees and squeeze in. So you turn on these deep core muscles that you can't get to without kind of going through these sequence. Okay. And then we move into upper body, and then we connect upper body to lower body, and it just turns things on. And then you can absolutely see a difference in before and after, where you're longer, you're more steady, you're more straight. What might be like your shoulder forward, that's been pulled back because the muscles in between your shoulder blades have been turned on, and those hold you back in comparison to gravity and forward. You know what I mean? And it's just a series of movements that turn things on, calm the nervous system down, provide a sense of strength and stability. This is something that I take people through, and I'll ask them to describe how they feel in the beginning. And a lot of times, the answers are, I'm tense, or, okay, I notice my jaw's really tight and my shoulders are tense, and I feel like my pelvis is turned to the right a little bit. And then they might say, and it feels a little bit rocky, unstable. And then I ask how they want to feel. So at the end, after we've done the moves, we stand and we reconnect that. And you then bring in the feeling of those words that they wanted to feel. Almost every single person that I've ever done this with says strong and confident, every single one. There's a complete difference in their posture, their body stance, deeper than posture, because you could stand and have good posture but not be aligned. It completely changes. How can I say this? It completely changes your state of being when your body is different. And there's some YouTube videos of a TED Talk of a woman who did this full blown experiment of hormones of people who were sitting like this and then did power pose and held it for like 2 minutes. They did saliva tests and they saw changes in testosterone and cortisol, and because our physicality, our form, informs our brain and our internal functions. So this was the move that I asked my client who was on the verge of diabetes. I asked her to do this religiously. Calm yourself first, get your body into a more aligned and grounded place, get your mind connected to your body, connected to your present. So these moves are so kind of small, and you can't be thinking of other things because you have to be connecting with your mind to this internal structure. So your brain and your mind and your body are all in the same place. And it literally just, can you like think about how much stronger you are when you have a table has all 4 legs working for it. If one's wobbly,
Yeah.
you might not put a vase with flowers on that table,
Yeah.
but maybe a drink with a coaster on the other side would be okay.
Yeah.
But it's the same kind of thing. Yeah.
Wow. If somebody's listening live or on the replay right now and they're interested in this gravity morning meditation with gravity, how would they find it?
Well, they could reach out to me. I'm actually in the middle of, I filmed it. I'm actually in the middle of putting things together. So this can just be a sort of standalone thing that people can buy. But I'm happy to hook them. I just haven't gotten all the tech part put together yet. But they can reach out to me. It was something that I learned with a friend of mine. And it comes from her company, the Body Wisdom Institute, which I'm a part of. But I want to give credit where credit is due. Yeah.
I love that. There's like a million more questions that I would like to ask. So we're gonna have you on again or something.
I'd love to.
But this has been so good. I so appreciate you coming on and just sharing so much awesomeness with us. For those, again, that are watching live, thank you for being here, for hanging out with us. For those watching on the replay, make sure you hashtag replay so we know where you are watching us at. For those that are watching, where can people find you? Website, social media? Where do you hang out?
Website is being completely revamped with all this new goodness. Instagram, I'm Doc Angela, DOC Angela, and I'm there almost every single day. Facebook, Angela M. Smith, I think /94 or something like that. And I'm there every day as well. There's a community in the making. There's workshops in the making. There's just all kinds of.
Insta is Doc Angela.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, you got that. That's awesome.
I know. I don't know how it was available. And my website, drangelasmith.com, don't know how that was available either.
Wow.
But
good for you. Well, that is great. So, what exactly, like, who exactly do you help? Who should be reaching out to you?
Anybody who is in conflict with themselves in any kind of way, especially if that is a health situation, a weight situation, a confidence situation, if they're just low energy. My clientele range from, I've got 2 teenagers and I've got somebody in their 70s, and it's really fascinating that the conversations are really still kind of similar. Yeah, we all just need a little more love and grace for ourselves, and yeah.
I love it. Well, I so appreciated hanging out with you and you taking some time out of your day to sit down and chit chat with us. This has been fantastic. And I'd love to have you again on the podcast at some point and also have you dip into one of our support groups. We have an Empower Hour with females that meet. So they love to learn things on Zoom and stuff. So I'll see if I can get Dr. Angela to drop in with us on one of those. But for those watching live, thank you for being here. Again, as I always say, if you could share this video wherever you're watching us at so we can get more eyes and more ears on our content, our video, and Dr. Angela, that would be fantastic. Check her out on Instagram, Doc Angela, and Facebook. Her website is in the link. So go ahead and click on it, see if it's working. She is working on it at the moment. I'm sure it'll be up within the next couple days or weeks or so. So depending on when you're watching this, it might be active. So even though we're saying it's not right now, still click it because you never know. So thank you so much for being here. We so appreciate it. Any closing thoughts, Angela?
Well, oh man, thank you so much for this. It's been so much fun. And the closing thoughts that I want to leave people with is that you matter, and everything about how you function, there's it just, when you can get to the place of really understanding how you function, and you can start to let go of maybe some shame and some pain, it really shifts your health. It shifts your energy. It shifts your life experience. It shifts your relationships. It shifts everything about you when you can really come to understand how you are designed to work in the most graceful, amazing way. Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much. This community is expanding every single day. We thank Dr. Angela Smith for being here and hanging out with us and sharing some goodies with us. We're all about moving forward. We're all about striving to do better than we did yesterday. For those of you that are new to this podcast and loved it, make sure that you hit that subscribe button, follow, like, and share. If you have an amazing story to share, check us out at hernation.life and see if you can get on the podcast. I am your host, Sabrina Victoria, and I'm so grateful to be here sharing a platform that allows people to share their truth and inspire others. Until